लगे लोगे जाएंगे फिर बस it's time to be serious ना. Hey everybody, we're live and in stereo. Today we'll be solving the latest October-November 2025 papers 062041. Yes, I'll also be solving O-level questions and O-level yearly papers. Just hold on a minute. We've solved one MCQ and now we're going to do one theory for IGCSE and then we're going to do one MCQ and theory for O-levels. But you need to take both because the syllabus difference is not that much now. And because there's no such difference in syllabus, they both help you revise concepts as much as you like, right? So without further ado, I'll write my name. My name is Suleiman Khan. Like that Ishar says, Suleiman Khan. And let's start. So it's the theory paper. Let's start off with the first question. It says, protons, electrons, and neutrons are particles found in atoms. Complete table 1.1 to show the relative mass, the relative charge of proton, neutron, and electron. What's the relative mass of a proton? It's 1. What's the relative mass of neutron? It's 1. What's the relative charge of a neutron? Neutron has no charge, 0. You could write 0 or no charge or whatever, but it's good to write 0 because see, everything is quantified, so it's better to quantify it. And electron has what charge? It has a relative charge of -1. Now understand that, see, if you ever forget that the relative mass of proton and neutron is 1 and electron has about 1/1840 relative mass or 1/2000, if you ever forget that, please remember an elementary school concept. You shouldn't be forgetting it, by the way, but an elementary school concept is, you know that 99.99999% of the mass of the atom lies in the nucleus of the atom. About 99.99999% mass of the atom lies in the nucleus of the atom. Why? Because you have protons and neutrons in the nucleus of the atom, and the mass of the electron is about 2000 times. Roughly, it's about 2000 times lighter. An electron is about 2000 times lighter than a proton or a neutron. That's the reason why relative mass of proton and neutron is 1, but electron's relative mass is about 1840 times or about 2000 times lighter compared to these two fellas, right? So this is an elementary school concept that you should be knowing. Next, define the term isotopes. You all know that isotopes are what? They are different atoms of the same element. The element must be the same. For example, I can even show it to you, like chlorine and chlorine. You know, you have one chlorine isotope, which is chlorine 35, and the other one is chlorine 37. And why are they the same element? Because they have the same number of proton. If the proton number is different, then obviously they're not going to be the same element. Since you all know that the proton number is the identification number of an element. It's the CNIC of an element. So if you're saying they are different atoms, but of the same element, they are different atoms of the same element. It's better to write same, right? So different atoms of the same element, right? Different atoms of the same element. Why is it the same element? Because they have the same number of protons. So having the same number of protons, that's what makes it the same element, right? Having the same number of protons, but different neutron number. Yes, or different number of neutrons. Now, obviously, also understand why am I saying that it has different number of neutrons? Because see, 35 minus 17, you get something else as the neutron number. 37 minus 17, you get something else as the neutron number, right? So it's better to define it like this. Now, the examiner has never asked this question. Yasin, please, I'm going to answer all the questions towards the end now. You note the questions down with yourself now. So the examiner has never asked this question, but I can ask it from you guys. And that is, and it's normally tested in A-levels. The question is, and it's never tested in O-levels, but it can be tested in O-levels, which is define isotopes in terms of atomic number or mass number and mass number, right? Then how do you define it? Well, you know that the isotopes, they are different atoms of the same element having the same number of protons. Same number of protons literally means having the same atomic number, because proton number and atomic number both mean the same thing. Atomic number refers to the number of protons in the nucleus of the atom, and neutron number is either you say different neutron number or you say different nucleon number. Because see, the reason why the number of neutrons are different is because the nucleon number is different. And if you want to talk in terms of mass number, you say, hey, it has a different mass number. So you could have defined it like this, but the examiner normally does not expect students to define it like this. The examiner normally, the thing that's written in your syllabus, the examiner specifically asks you to define isotopes as different atoms of the same element. There are different atoms because see, one is 35 and one is 37. So you don't just write atoms of the same element, you say different atoms of the same element having the same number of protons but different number of neutrons. Or you could have said same atomic number but different mass number. Or you could have said here same number of protons but different number of nucleons, which nucleon number and mass number mean the same thing. It's right here, 35, 37 refers to the total number of protons plus neutrons in the nucleus of the atom. Now, explain why all isotopes of the same element, see why all isotopes of the same element have same chemical properties. Why do they have same chemical properties? You know that chemical properties depends on the number of outermost electrons or on the electronic configuration in its entirety. So if you look at these fellas, they are atoms. These fellas are atoms, and so for atoms the number of protons and electrons are equal. So for both chlorine 35 isotope and 37 isotope, they both have the same number of electrons, and that is the reason why they are going to have the same electronic configuration, which is what the first shell holds 2, the other holds 8, that's 10, and the last shell would hold the remaining 7, which is 70. So they have the same number of electrons. That's what makes it have same number of or the same electronic configuration, which obviously also means that it's going to have the same number of outermost electrons. So they have same number of electrons and thus have the same electronic configuration. Because see, it's saying explain. So tell the examiner that you know that they have the same number of electrons, thus having the same electronic configuration, which is 287, and thus also has same number of outermost electrons. That is 7. Done. And also I have a question here. When you say define the term isotopes, can you guys tell me whether these two fellas are isotopes? Because I have to prepare you for the proper exam. Can you guys tell me, are these two isotopes? If yes, why? And if no, why? Are these two isotopes? One is X35 and the other one is X37, and I've also put a negative charge on it. Are these two isotopes? Are these two isotopes? Please, I'm going to entertain questions towards the end. Acha, please also understand, students who just write that isotopes have same number of protons, different number of neutrons, you only get 1 mark for this. Those who have learned this, same number of protons but different number of neutrons, only 1 mark. Only 1 mark, because you have to specify what. They are different atoms of the same element having the same number of protons but different number of neutrons, right? Are these two fellas isotopes? Oh no, you dumbo jumbo. These two fellas aren't isotopes. Why? Because one is not the atom. This fella is an ion. It's charged. It has a charge. Remember, an isotope are different atoms. These two are isotopes because they are both atoms. These two, although they have the same proton number, different neutron number, but one is an ion. That's why it's a charged species. That's why it can't fall under the category of an isotope, right? Done. Next question. Complete figure table 1.2. A very easy question. What are the number of neutrons? Chote ko bade se minus kare, 40 minus 18. Why? Because 40 is the mass number or the nucleon number, which refers to the total number of protons plus neutrons in the nucleus of the atom. And you already have the number of protons, which is 18. So you say, hey, 40 equals 18 plus n. It's basic math, and n equals 40 minus 18. And if this math confuses you, you could just say, hey, just chote ko bade se minus kare. That's all. That'll give you the number of neutrons. So 40 minus 18. What do we get, guys? 40 minus 18. Somebody. Anji, 40 minus 18, 22. Thank you. And okay, one more question before I solve this. My question is, do isotopes have the same physical properties? This can also be asked. Do isotopes have the same physical properties? Yes, no? No, they don't have the same physical properties. Why? Because they don't have the same mass number. They have different mass number. And see, if the mass number is different, one fella may have a different weight or different mass, the other fella has a different mass. So obviously their physical properties will differ, right? Their physical properties would differ. For example, how quickly they diffuse. It's going to differ, obviously, wouldn't it? Right? So they don't have same physical properties, and the reason is because of mass number. Chemical properties depends on electrons. Physical properties would depend on the mass number for an atom, okay, or for an isotope. Then he says, sir, what are the number of protons? The proton number never changes no matter the charge. So it's 16. It's the identification number. Then it says, what are the number of electrons? Now, if it was just S, the number of protons and electrons are equal. You have 16 P's and 16 E's. But now it is S2 minus, which means what? It has gained 2 more electrons. That's why it has a 2 negative charge. So if it has gained 2 more electrons, that means you don't have 16 electrons. You now have 18 electrons. I'm going to plug in 18 right here. How easy? Yeah. And then he's saying, what fella is this? Now, if he's given you the number of proton, you have to write the symbol like written above. You go into the periodic table and check which fella has a proton number of 22. Proton number is the smaller number. So which fella has the proton number 22? It's efficient to do both past papers, O levels and IGCSE, especially when it comes to the recent papers. Yeah. So if you go to the periodic table, you say, hey, titanium is the fella. Titanium Ti is the fella which has proton 22. I'm going to add the number of protons here. Just like he's shown me the number of protons for argon, for sulfur, I'm going to put the number of protons here. Then the number of neutrons are 28. And if you want to write the mass number is the total number of protons plus neutrons in the nucleus of the atom. So it's 22 plus 28. What does that give me? 40. 40 plus 8, that's 50. So 50 is the mass number. Remember, the number of electrons has no role in determining the mass number. It's simply p plus n, p plus n, p plus n, p plus n. And what is going to be the charge on this? You realize, hey, you have 22 protons but only 20 electrons. That means you have two fewer electrons. Though electrons come and fewer electrons mean, should you have a positive charge or a negative charge? Obviously you should have a 2 plus charge, because 2 plus means that you have two fewer electrons. Two electrons have been lost. Yeah. Always write, please remember, always write the charge after this. Whenever you're writing the charge, always write the sign after the magnitude. See, just like he's written it here, 2 minus, 2 plus. Zoom user, please, I'll answer all the questions towards the end. Please. We don't have time because I also have to teach AS level fellas. The term mass number is defined as the total number of protons and neutrons in the nucleus of the atom. We also know that. And it's also called nucleon number, by the way. We've been discussing this since the start of this paper. He's saying state one other term which is used to define the total number of protons and neutrons in the nucleus of the atom. It's called the nucleon number. Tuck and tuck and tuck. How easy. This is literally it. Literally. Sir, what is fella? Fella is my head. What is failure? This is just English, yeah? Yeah. Sir, please keep the pace low. O level ऐसी language बोलना. Guys, you're gonna give the paper in English, aren't you? It's an English paper, not an Urdu paper, is it? Sir, आप 2x में पढ़ा रहे, because I am teaching a lot of concepts simultaneously. Do you want to do 30 papers, or do you want me to do 15 papers and teach very slow and do half a paper a day? That's up to you guys. Once the students register, we can ask them these questions. The electron question was confused. There's nothing confusing. If it's a positive charge, that means you've lost 2 electrons. You have 20 electrons. If it was just titanium, always think like this, Arib. If it was just titanium, you would have had 22 electrons and 22 protons, because for an atom, the number of protons and electrons are equal. Yeah. But it has 20 electrons. That means 2 electrons must have been lost. And 2 electrons lost means what? Should it have a 2 plus charge or 2 minus charge? It should most definitely be 2 plus. And I can also prove it mathematically, but this is not the time to prove it mathematically. Okay. Next questions, guys. Next questions. Okay. The next question is, calculate the number of atoms in 2 grams of argon. Now, he's asked you how many atoms are there in 2 grams of argon. Now, you obviously know that grams and atoms have no relationship. What do? Whenever we see data in front of us and it's a moles and stoichiometry data, the first thing that we do is convert the data into moles. How can you convert grams into moles? Well, I can use a simple formula. Mass equal mole times molar mass. That's how you can convert mass. Mass is 2 grams. You need to find the moles. What's the molar mass of argon? Go into the periodic table, or MR. That's 40. So N is equal to 40 is being multiplied here. It will be divided on the left hand side. So 2 divided by 40. What do you get? How many moles do you get? Somebody help me out. How many moles do we get? How many moles? Absolutely no. Atomic mass number is not the same thing as atomic number means the number of protons, not the nucleons. So it's 0.05. Thank you. These are the moles of argon. But you don't need the moles. What do you need? You need the atoms. How do you go from moles to atoms? Well, we know number of atoms equals mole times Avogadro's constant, 6.02 into 10 is power 23. You've already calculated the moles. Just plug it in right here, 0.05. times 6.02 into 10 is power 23. What do you get, sir? Can somebody tell me the value? What do you get? You get 0.301 into 10 is power what? 23. Okay. This is what we get. And he's saying give the answer in standard form. Standard form means obviously that the answer should be greater than 1 but less than 10, obviously. So you don't write 0.3, you're going to shift this 1 point towards this side. And how do you go from 0.3 into 3? You multiply it with 10. So what I'm doing is I'm going to extract 110 from this. It's 10 raised to the power 23. I'm going to extract 110 out of this and multiply it with this, with 0.301. So once I extract 110 out of this, you're going to be left with 10 raised to the power 22. And the 10 that I've extracted, I multiplied it with 0.301. So that's going to give me what? One decimal shift to the right is going to be 3.01 into 10 raised to the power 22. And this is a math teacher's job to teach you standard forms, but hey, we roll with it. These are the number of atoms. Next. Calcium is an element in group 2 of the periodic table. We all know that. He's saying identify the element in group 2 which only has 5 occupied electron shells. Now, what can you do in the periodic table to figure out the number of shells? What tells you the number of shells from periodic table? Well, that's the period number. So you go and check out the element in group 2 which is in the 5th period, because 5th period means that it has 5 electron shells. Let's go to the periodic table because a lot of students are going to make a mistake here. Oh, before I go to the periodic table, I can even add it. What am I doing, Suleiman? You can even add the periodic table right here. Let me add it. Let me add the periodic table. Here you go. So a lot of students make the mistake of saying this is the first period. Absolutely BS. The first period starts from here. This is period number 1 because this is row number 1. This is the second horizontal row, which is row number 2, period 2. This is period 3. Right here, period 3. This is period 4. This is period 5. So he's saying, see, this is period 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because horizontal rows in the periodic table refers to period. And in the 5th period, and in group 2, you have what? Strontium. Strontium is the fella which is in the 5th period and it's in group 2. You just, coincide. This goes here and this comes down here. They both coincide at strontium. So identify the element. You could write SR or you could write strontium. Please check out the spelling here. Strontium. Done. I think name and describe the type of bonding. So name it first. What is the type of bonding in group 2? Group 2 elements are obviously metal. So the bonding is metallic bonding. Name it. Name is metallic bonding. And what's the description? By description, he effectively means the definition that you've learned. Please write that down and describe it for me. So what is metallic bonding, by the way? What is metallic bonding? Metallic bonding is electrostatic force of attraction. Electrostatic attraction or force of attraction between what and what? Between what and what? Between a lattice. Lattice means a regular arrangement. So it's a lattice of positive ions and it's sea of delocalized electrons. So it's a lattice of positive ions and you have electrons, they're delocalized, right? So it's between a lattice. Lattice means regular arrangement. See, these metallic structures are regularly arranged. You can see a pattern. That's why we say it's regularly arranged. So it's electrostatic attraction between a lattice of positive ions and sea of delocalized electrons, right? Which are free to move or whatever. Lattice of positive ions we कह सकते हैं. You can also call it lattice of cations. Nobody cares. Lattice of cations are effectively positive ions. It's up to you. Yeah. So you get all marks for it. बिल्कुल. Can we say the electrostatic force between oppositely charged ions? Absolutely not. Because metals, they don't have ions. They only have positive ions. They don't have negative ions. So when you say between oppositely charged ions, Abdullah, you get 0 marks. Because metals have positive ions, which are cations. This is the lattice, and electrons, not negative ions. When you say oppositely charged ions, that means you have a positive ion and a negative ion, and we did the MCQ for it yesterday, Abdullah. Which means you haven't watched yesterday's class, or if you have, you haven't paid attention. That's very crucial now. You can't do such mistakes. Achha, when a piece of calcium is added to cold water just means H2O liquid. In chemistry, cold water refers to H2O liquid, hot water refers to H2O gas. Right? Now I'm saying it's added to H2O liquid. What happens? Well, first give 3 observations before I even talk about the observation. What happens? Well, calcium reacts with water. What does it do? It displaces the hydrogen of water and forms calcium hydroxide. CaOH twice. Now, why is the formula CaOH twice? Because calcium is in group 2, it will make a 2 plus ion. OH has a minus sign. You cross multiply, you get what? CaOH twice. And plus the hydrogen that has been displaced will form H2 gas. So what should be the observation? Well, obviously calcium was a beautiful solid. We say, hey, the solid starts to dissolve. Solid dissolves. Because obviously calcium hydroxide, it is slightly soluble. Slightly soluble, right? Slightly soluble, so I'm going to put aqueous here. It's sparingly soluble, right? I'm going to put aqueous here by telling this again, okay, some of the solid will dissolve. So solid dissolves, that's one observation. The next observation is hydrogen gas forms, and it forms so quickly that I'm not just going to say bubbling, I'm going to call it effervescence. Remember, there's a difference between bubbling and effervescence. Effervescence means quick bubbles, quick bubbles. And because the reaction is absolutely quick, you see quick bubbles, which I'll call effervescence. So I'm going to say, hey, solid disappears. That's the first observation. The second observation is I see effervescence. And the third observation is that he's saying universal indicator is used. And now you know that calcium hydroxide is alkaline in nature. It is a base, and with universal indicator, what color does a universal indicator give you with a base? What color? Obviously, it's going to give you a blue color. See, universal indicator has these color, ROIG, BIF. Now, obviously, it's not going to be indigo or violet, and the reason for that is that indigo and violet refers to a very high pH, like about 12-ish, 13-ish, 14-ish, but calcium hydroxide, sir, it's sparingly soluble. It's sparingly soluble. It's not as soluble as sodium hydroxide. And if it's sparingly soluble, that means it's going to not give you that many hydroxide ions like sodium hydroxide. Sodium hydroxide would have been violetish or indigoish, right? But calcium hydroxide does not give so many hydroxide ions because it's not that soluble. It is sparingly soluble. That's why we see solid disappearing, but not that much. Solid disappears, galat hai. I'm sorry. Don't say solid disappears, say solid dissolves. That's the better word, because it wouldn't disappear to the complete extent, right? Because it's sparingly soluble. So you're going to, with your naked eyes, you're going to observe a solid slowly dissolving, right? And then you're going to have a bluish observation instead of indigoish or violetish, because obviously it does not give you that many hydroxide ions. Let's see if he's asked this question. So it's going to give you a blue what? A blue solution, right? You're going to say solution turns blue, or blue solution is observed. Yeah, because obviously when you add universal indicator to it, this color will go into blue. This is a solution right here, aqueous. Name two products of the reaction. Absolutely, we've already done it. It's calcium hydroxide and hydrogen. So it's saying name. Don't write the formula, name it. So it's calcium. Name means name. Hydroxide. And what's the other one? It's hydrogen. See, this is how easy these questions are. Then it says calcium burns in oxygen. State the color of the flame. Calcium gives an orange-red flame. That's why I say you need to know the flame tests, the flame colors. Orange-red. How can you memorize flame colors? Well, it's very easy. You can put this in your brain. ROIG BIF. Orange red. See, I go from orange to red. Orange red is calcium. Yellow is sodium ions. That's going to give you yellow flame test. Blue or ROIG BIF. I forgot to put green here. G is basically barium 2 plus ion, light green. And blue green is what? Copper 2 plus. That's the flame test that you're going to observe. And indigo violet, I'm not going to call it indigo violet, I'm going to call it lilac. Lilac is potassium. This is how you can remember the flame colors with this simple mnemonic. Potassium orange, violet, lilac. It's lilac, not violet, lilac. Yeah, done. Yeah, lithium किधर से आ गए? Lithium is not part of your course, man. लिथियम नहीं, पोटेशियम है. लिथियम किधर से आ गया? जो कोर्स का हिस्सा है वो नहीं आता, लेकिन जो कोर्स का हिस्सा नहीं है वो याद किए. स्ट्रॉन्शियम के कलर किसी ने याद किए हैं. पता नहीं आपके टीचर्स किस जमाने के बाबे बैठे हुए हैं. मैं कुछ नहीं कह सकता. Write the symbol equation. These are the only flame colors that you need to know. For crying out loud, open your ATP paper. Look at the end in your ATP paper. You have the flame colors mentioned. These are the only ones you need to know. Write the symbol equation for this reaction. Symbol equation, we've already written it above. I can reiterate it again. Calcium plus what? Do it, Shabash. Do it. Calcium plus. Acha, it says Oxygen, calcium burns in oxygen. It doesn't want the symbol equation for this. It's saying calcium burns in oxygen. So burns in oxygen is calcium plus oxygen. Gives you what? Calcium oxide, obviously. Why is the formula CaO? Because calcium has a charge of 2 plus, oxygen is 2 minus, and since the charges balance each other out, a calcium ion ke liye you just need one O2 minus ion. That's why the formula is CaO. CaO literally means that for one calcium ion, you need one O2 minus ion. A lot of teachers say these 2 plus and this 2 minus cancel out. No, this is an incorrect concept. Incorrect concept. Then the second, this is 1 mark, right? The second mark is obviously for balancing it. Now if you check out this equation, you have one calcium on the left, one on the right, two oxygens on the left, but only one on the right. So what should I do with these two oxygens to make it one? What should I do? What should I multiply 2 with to get 1? See, what should I multiply 2 with? 2 को x से multiply करूँ, किससे multiply करूँ कि 1 है, x is equal to 2 would divide on the right hand side. So 1 over 2. Just add 1 over 2 here. Now you can leave the answer like this, or you could multiply the entire equation with 2 to remove fraction. You will get marks in both cases. And please understand that since it's a 2 mark question, the examiner hasn't even asked you about the state symbol. If somebody, God forbid, if somebody puts a state symbol solid here, gas here, and instead of putting a solid here, somebody puts aqueous, you're going to get 0 marks then, or 1 mark. The examiner is going to cut a mark for writing incorrect state symbols, even though it's not required. So remember this. See, the state symbols weren't required. So apne se terneli na mare. Don't try to be cheeky or don't try to show the examiner that you know everything, because if state symbols aren't required, don't write them. Unless the marks were 3 marks, then I would assume that you also need to write state symbols. But if it's 2 marks, then that means 1 mark is for writing the equation, second is for balancing, and the examiner hasn't even explicitly stated that he needs state symbols, right? So that's one thing to understand. But if you write incorrect state, there's no harm in writing state symbols, but if you write it incorrectly, you won't get mark for it. They will actually deduct a mark. अच्छा, next आसान है यार, कुछ नहीं है इन एमसीक्यू में. व्हाट्स द स्टेट सिंबल ऑफ कैल्शियम ऑक्साइड? इज द सॉलिड, white solid. Yeah. Acha. Next question. Crystals of hydrated calcium nitrate. And okay, one more thing to keep in mind. Guys, I can't stress this enough. Please do not skip out on moles and stoichiometry this year. A lot of students, even though they learn the entire syllabus, they tend to skip on moles and stoichiometry. And let me tell you, you all are in for a treat. This year, I'm reckoning this, and this is from experience. This year, Cambridge has even reiterated this, that they will test more toward the analytical side. Analytical side means they will test more towards calculations, even in this paper. That's why it's pathetic, useless to do like papers from 2002 and 2005. Useless. Do recent papers so that you get an idea of how the examiner is going to test you in the exams, right? So please understand, this time moles and stoichiometry is very crucial. Titration is very crucial, and salt preparation, as well as titration and moles and stoichiometry, along with energetics. Organic to hai hai, but these 3 chapters are the most crucial chapters of your entire paper. Let me tell you this. Acha, crystals of hydrated calcium nitrate and water. See, this is a moles and stoichiometry question. He's saying the formula of hydrated calcium nitrate is shown. X is a whole number. What is this XH2O? This represents water of crystallization. What is meant by water of crystallization? Water of crystallizations are the water molecules present in a hydrated salt. So you're saying, what is the name given to the water molecules present in hydrated salt? It's called water of crystallization. Done. Water or waters, both are correct. Khair. When hydrated calcium nitrate is heated gently, this is the equation which forms. And see, again, it's a moles and stoichiometry question. I have done marathons on this. You can watch the marathons on my YouTube. It's a very basic question. I can even, without reading anything, the examiner will take you step by step, but without reading anything, let me tell you what you're going to do. The first step that you're going to do is you're going to convert both the data into moles, right? So what am I going to do? I'm going to convert both the data into moles, and I'm going to say, okay, for these many moles of water were required. So for 1 mole, how many water is required? X, you're going to find X, right? So this is the first step where we do. So you have 3.28 grams of calcium nitrate. Mass equals mole times molar mass. What is mass? 3.28 grams. Moles of calcium nitrate, I don't know. Molar mass is given 164. You don't even have to calculate it on your own. N is equal to 3.28 divided by 164. Yes, what do you get? How many moles of calcium nitrate do you get, guys? Shabash. How many moles of calcium nitrate? And on the other side, you also figure out the moles of water. Sir, how do you know these are the moles of water? Because understand, he's saying that when this fella forms, the mass of the crystal decreases by 1.44 grams, which means that what has been evaporated? H2O has been evaporated. That's why it decreases. So this is effectively the mass of H2O. Normally the examiner never gives this mass. He gives the starting mass and this mass, and you have to subtract these two to get the mass of H2O. Achha, by the way, what if the examiner says what was the starting mass? The examiner has never asked this question, but what if the examiner says, what was the starting mass of calcium hydrated salt of calcium nitrate? Well, if this is the mass of calcium nitrate and this is the mass of water that went out, if you add these two masses, this was the initial mass, right? So 3.28 grams plus 1.44 grams. This was the mass of hydrated salt of calcium nitrate that you actually had. And out of this, now it's split into two. This was the mass of calcium nitrate and this was the mass of water that was liberated, right? So calculate the moles of water as well. Mass equal mole times molar mass. Mass is given 1.44. Moles I need to find. Molar mass of water, that's 18. I'm not reading the question because I know this will be tested. They will take you step by step. I want to teach you the thought process. So what do you get? How many moles do you get for calcium nitrate and for water? Please tell me. Somebody tell me. Yeah. Somebody tell me how many moles do you get? 0.02 moles, 0.02 moles of calcium nitrate and 0. How many moles? 0.08 moles of water. Thank you, Moise. So these are the moles of water and the moles of calcium nitrate. Then what do? You say, okay, I need to find X. So you say calcium nitrate or water ka, what's the relation? Well, you actually figured out that for 0.02 moles of calcium nitrate, you need 0.08 moles of water. So if you had 1 mole of calcium nitrate, see, when you had 1 mole of calcium nitrate, how many moles of water did you need? 1 ke liye kitne moles of water were required? X cross multiply, what do you get? 0.08 divided by 0.02. Because see, X will multiply with this and 1 will multiply here. And then in order to find X, you will divide 0.02 right here. So what do you get? 4. See, without doing the steps, I figured out the value. Now the examiner will take you step by step. He says, calculate the moles of calcium nitrate. The same steps that I've told you. You've already done it. It's 0.02 moles. And by the way, please see, the examiner has given you the answer correct to 3 significant figures. See, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So you should also give the answer correct to 3 significant figures. This is 1 significant figure. The preceding zeros are not included in significant figures. So ये एक significant figure है 1, then just add 2 more zeros. Similarly here, calculate the number of moles of water given off. It's given right here, 0.08. So 0.08, that's 1 significant figure, 2, 3. Then calculate X. How did you calculate S? It was 0.08 divided by 0.02. What do you get? 4. Right here, we've already done it. So free marks. Next. Question number 3. A student makes, again, see, this is what I'm talking about. The entire exam is filled with moles and stoichiometry. You will be cooked if you don't do moles and stoichiometry. I'm not joking. I swear I'm not joking. Please don't marry me. Please, Allah ka khauf karein, tawbah karein. Yeah. Actually, I'm getting 17 message. Sir, I need to drink. Okay, drink. Lithium ka color is not part of your course, right? Lithium का कलर किधर से आ गया कोर्स में? निगाह है, निगाह, सॉरी यार, बच्चे हैं अभी तक, बच्चे ही रहे हैं यार, अभी ए लेवल शुरू होने लगा है, बच्चों की तरह. या और कोई सवाल है? I'm looking at the question. सही है, बट ठीक है, दबाव देख लें. Now he's saying a student makes crystals. Please read the questions carefully. This is a good paper, by the way. A student makes crystals of the salt sodium sulfate. Now, sodium sulfate is a soluble salt, and it's a soluble salt of group 1. And how do you make soluble salt of group 1? You use titration. For group 1 soluble salt or for ammonium salt, you use titration. You take a base, sodium के साथ hydroxide लेंगे और sulfate के साथ sulfuric acid लेंगे. So you take sodium hydroxide, that's the alkali, and sulfate किधर से आएगा? Sulfuric acid से. You react them together, what do you get? The hydrogen in the sulfuric acid and the OH in the base or alkali, they're going to give you H2O, and you're going to get what? Na2SO4. Why Na2SO4? Because sodium has a charge of 1 plus, SO4 is 2 minus, cross multiply, you get Na2SO4. That's why the formula is this, and this is aqueous. And then what do? Well, if you want to prepare this, then you pour this into an evaporating dish, you heat till crystallization. You heat till the point of crystallization, which is effectively when the solution becomes saturated. When solution is saturated. What is a saturated solution? A saturated solution is a solution which can, which can, which can hold no more solute, no more solute at a specified temperature. बस इतना ही चीज आती है उसमें, उसके ज्यादा नहीं आती है at that particular temperature. Or a solution that holds the maximum concentration of solute in that solvent, holds maximum concentration of solute at that particular temperature. Right? It's like if you want to understand a saturated solution, it's like if you take a cup of water and you start adding NaCl to it and start mixing it. NaCl dissolves in water. You all know that. But the more NaCl you add, you're going to start adding NaCl, 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 and start mixing it. There will come a point that no more NaCl will dissolve, because you realize that water molecules are slightly separated. Liquid particles are close together but slightly separated. So when you start adding NaCl, the NaCl particles will start to, fill in those separated gaps. They're going to start to fill in those separated gaps. And once those gaps are filled completely, no more NaCl will dissolve. That is why we say a saturated solution is a solution which holds the maximum concentration of a solute. Solute is NaCl. The maximum concentration of solute at a specified temperature, right? And then if I heat it, then what would happen? These particles would be more separated from each other, because when you heat it, the particles move faster and slightly they will move further apart. And so you're going to have more spaces, and then more NaCl is going to be dissolved. So this is what effectively a saturated solution is. Continuing from that, once the solution is saturated, then what do? You let it cool. Why do you let it cool? When you let it cool, crystals start to form. Why do crystals form when you let it cool? Because, why? Please tell me why. Because even soluble salts, even sodium sulfate, which is a soluble salt, the moment it is cooled down, they tend to become less soluble at lower temperatures. So soluble salts are less soluble at lower temperatures. That's why they start to solidify. They start to show you these crystals. So this is the entire idea of how you do it. And also understand, when you perform titration, the first thing is you perform titration with an indicator to know the end point. What is the end point? The end point is the volume where, and how do you define end point? It is when the indicator changes color. How do you identify the end point? When the indicator changes color. When an acid completely reacts with a base. And how do you know that the endpoint has been reached? The indicator changes color. So once the first time when you perform titration experiment for the first time, you're going to do it with the indicator to figure out the volume of neutralization, or the volume that is required to react completely H2SO4 and NaOH. And then once you have the volume, you're going to do it without the indicator, because if you do it with the indicator and you continue with all of these steps, indicator also has a certain color. So it's gonna act like an impurity with this salt. We want pure salt. Right? So this is the entire story. Let's see what the examiner is doing. So he's saying the student follows the following step. I've given you the entire steps and the idea. Let's see if the student follows it. He's saying he places 40 cm cube of NaOH into a conical flask. So 40 cm cube of NaOH is placed in a conical flask. Now you guys tell me something. Is this 40 cm cube of NaOH going to be poured in the conical flask with the help of a pipette, or with the help of something else? Will you use a pipette or something else? Guys, moles is very important. Mudassir, you don't use burette. You guys don't know. It is a waste of time. When you pour something in a conical flask, you don't use burette, by the way. You either use a pipette, or Shayan is absolutely right. In this case, you are not going to use a pipette. The student must be using measuring cylinder. Why would he be using measuring cylinder, by the way? Please, why is your ATP so weak? Take my classes for ATP. It's going to be available on your yearly portal. Why is it going to use the measuring cylinder? Why is the examiner going to use, or the student going to use measuring cylinder? Because you dumbo jumbo, a pipette can have 25 cm cube at a particular time, right? It only has one graduation. So how do you make 40 centimeter cube? It's not about lower volume. It's about, if it was 50, then I'd say, okay, he filled the pipette twice. Once with 25 poured it, the other one. But a pipette only has one graduation. How do you get 40 cm cube? It's 25, 25. You can put 25, you can put, okay, I'll post this onto YouTube. Please stop spamming, stop spamming. Yes, you're right. Pipette holds 25 cm cube, not 40. So, and there's only one graduation. So you won't be able to accurately use a pipette, right? Hence, measuring cylinder should have been used. And he's saying this volume contains these many moles. This volume contains these many moles. What do you see from here? You're given moles and you're also given volume. What do you see, Shabash? What do you see? You are given moles and you are given volume. Sir, volume and moles. Whenever you are given volume and moles, you can use N equals CV. Please, this volume, please don't use N equals 20, V is equal to N times 24. It is not a gas, it's a solution. For solution, N equals CV. The student adds a few drops of methyl indicator to NaOH. Now, when he added few drops of methyl orange indicator, NaOH, since it's an alkali, methyl orange will give you a yellow color. Then what's going to happen? The student adds this concentration of sulfuric acid to the flask until the end point is reached. What is the end point? When the acid completely reacts with the base, right? Or with the alkali in this case. And how do we know end point is reached? The indicator changes color. What color would it go to? Well, it is yellow in the conical flask where there was an alkali, but in end point, you have 1 or 2 drops of acid which is always in excess. That's something that humans need to take into consideration. It's like an error, right? So basically, when an endpoint is reached, you see the indicator changes color. And since acid is being added from the top, the indicator should change color to red, because methyl orange gives you a red color in an indicator. And how would you add the acid? Yes, I'm going to add the acid using a burette, because I need to be very accurate to figure out the volume of neutralization or the volume for the endpoint, right? Then he's saying that the student transfers the mixture from the conical flask into an evaporating basin, like I've said. Now, he's made a blunder here. What is the blunder that he's made? He did not repeat the experiment without the indicator. Indicator के साथ कर लिया भाई, आपको volume of neutralization मिल गया. Then you still continued with it. Now, when you poured it into the conical, from the conical flask into the evaporating basin and obtained dry crystals, how would you obtain dry crystal? He would heat it till the solution becomes saturated, right? But the problem is he has also added methyl. There are also going to be methyl orange particles here, and that's going to cause the salt to not be pure. It's going to be an impurity. So he needed to perform the entire experiment this time without the indicator. The indicator's use is only to figure out कि कितना sulfuric acid is used. It was only to figure out the volume of neutralization. That's all. He's saying complete the equation. Sodium sulfate, it is soluble because all sulfates are soluble except for LMS castrobar, which is lead, mercury, and silver, calcium, strontium, and barium. Except for these, all sulfates are soluble. And you also know all group 1s are soluble. So this is aqueous. And what else forms? Well, the hydrogen in the acid and the OH in the base are going to give you H2O. So you form H2O. And what should be the state symbol? The state symbol should obviously be I liquid. Now you need to also balance it. See, two hydrogen ions would react with two hydroxide ions to give you two H2Os. That's how you can even balance it. Or you could have just balanced out the H's in the end. You could say, hey, you have two H's here and 2 times 2. That's 4. You have 4 H's on the left. You only have 2 here. Put a 2 here. H2O is liquid. Something is aqueous when it is dissolved in water. Yes. Do you hate chemistry? No, I love chemistry. Is this paper too, huh? Acha. I hope everybody is figuring out their mistakes. Now he's saying state the type of exothermic reaction taking place. What type of reaction is this called? Remember, this is when an alkali reacts with an acid. It's called a neutralization reaction. Now, one more thing to keep in mind. Is every acid-base reaction a neutralization reaction? See, this is an acid and that's an alkali. And you know, it's also a base. Alkalis are just soluble bases, right? The base which can dissolve in water, that's called an alkali. So this is acid-alkali reaction, and that's the neutralization reaction. My question to you guys is every acid-base reaction a neutralization reaction? For example, I say, hey, sodium, potassium hydroxide reacts with HCl. Is this an acid-base reaction? Yes, it is. But is it a neutralization reaction? Yes, because see, so potassium hydroxide is an alkali. It's soluble, right? So if it's a soluble base, aka an alkali, then it would be called neutralization reaction. But if it's something like magnesium carbonate or copper oxide or calcium oxide, although all these three are bases, and they can react with acids to give salt and water, this is an acid-base reaction. It is an acid-base reaction because an acid is reacting with a base. But remember, this is not a neutralization reaction. No. Why is it not a neutralization reaction? Because for neutralization reaction, you must have a soluble base reacting with an acid, aka you must have an alkali reacting with an acid. How do you know it's soluble? Because all group 1 salts or all group 1s are soluble. एंड यू शुड नो योर नैक्सैग रूल्स। यार देख लेना यूट्यूब पे मेरा पार्ट 4 एसिड बेसिस का पढ़ा है, मैराथन देख लें। मतलब हाउ डू यू नो इट्स नैक्सैग रूल्स? यू नीड टू नो द solubility rules, otherwise you can't make any salt on the face of planet Earth. Okay, he's saying calculate the concentration of NaOH. You can calculate it. You are given moles, you're given volume, you can calculate it from N equals CV. So N equals CV, moles are given, which is 0.01 equals concentration. I need to figure that out. Volume is how much? Volume is 40 cm cube. Convert this into decimeter cube. How do you do it? By dividing it by 1000. And then you just flip the equation. So 1000 is being divided here, it'll be multiplied there, and 40 is being multiplied here, it'll be divided here, right? So in order to figure out the concentration, you say 0.01 divided by 40 multiplied by 1000. Remember, the examiner gives you marks for these expressions. So this will give you 1 mark and then the final answer. So what's the concentration of NaOH? Somebody help me out. You need a group 1 base, right? For neutralization, a group 1 base is effectively called an alkali. Copper oxide insoluble. Calcium oxide, calcium is sparingly soluble. It's sparingly soluble, but normally group 1s तो are all soluble ना. कैल्शियम ऑक्साइड को मैं थोड़ा सा रिमूव कर देता हूँ, बट इट्स द सेम थिंग. खैर जी बताएं, somebody gives me an answer for it please. I'm doing these questions for the first time with you all. So what do we get? 0.25 mole per dm cube. 0.25 mole per dm cube. Done? Yeah? Okay. Name the apparatus that a student uses to pour H2SO4 in step 3. So pouring H2SO4 in step 3 is from a burette, right? Because he needs to be very careful with it. Burette. Burette. Yeah? Calculate the volume of sulfuric acid. See, he's saying volume of sulfuric acid nikalna hai. Now, always remember, this is a titration question. Once you had the moles of sodium hydroxide, right? And in the question, has he given any information about sulfuric acid? He has given the concentration. In order to figure out the volume, you need to use N equals CV. You already have concentration of sulfuric acid. You need to find the volume, but then somehow you can't have two unknowns, can you? So somehow you need to also figure out the moles of sulfuric acid that reacted. And how do you do that? From the equation. You already have the moles of sodium hydroxide that you used, which is what? It is 0.01. So 2 moles of sodium hydroxide reacts with 1 mole. 0.01 moles of sodium hydroxide would react with how many moles of sulfuric acid? X. Cross multiply, you're going to get the moles of sulfuric acid. Once you have the moles of sulfuric acid, you have the concentration, N equals CV. That's all. So what do? I say, hey, first I need to figure out the moles of sulfuric acid that reacted. So I know that 2 moles of NaOH reacts with 1 mole of sulfuric acid right here. See, 2 reacts with 1. And how many moles did you have of NaOH? 0.01. So 0.01 reacts with how many moles? N or X, whatever. Cross multiply, you get N equals 0.01 divided by 2. Please do not put the exam, like, you do not plug this into the calculator. Always write the expression, because the marks are for the expression, not for showing this. Right? What do you get? N is equal to, what are the moles of sulfuric acid? Hanji, moles of sulfuric acid. जी बताइएगा. जी 0.005. These are the moles of sulfuric acid. Then N equals CV. Moles are there. Concentration you already have, which is what? Which is 0.2 mole per dm cube. Into V. You need to find V. What is V? Can somebody give V? Now V is obviously going to be in decimeter cube because concentration was in dm cube, right? So what is V? What do you get V as? Somebody help me out. What is the name of my YouTube channel? It's at Carboxyl Chem. You guys don't even know who I am. That's so unfortunate. So you get 0.025 dm cube, but the examiner wants the answer in cm cube. So what do? You multiply this further with 1,000. So you say, hey, 0.025 dm cube multiplied by 1,000. Obviously, I can go towards the right side, but the examiner says don't write in this margin. So please don't. What do you get? 25 cm cube. Done. Next. State the color change observed in step 3. It is from yellow to red, because methyl orange goes from yellow. It gives you a yellow color in an alkali and red in a base. Next, or in an sorry, in an acid, red in an acid, right? The dry crystals formed in step 4 are not white colored. Why? Because this is because the student should do an additional step between step 3 and 4. What is step 3 and 4? What he did was he added a few drops of methyl orange, and then the student adds this much from the flask until the end point is reached, and then so between 3 and 4, what is he doing? Once the end point has reached, it also has methyl orange in it. We literally discussed it. See, that's the reason why I say read the question. The question contains all the hints. So he's saying, yeah, he had methyl orange, da da da, and he poured it into the apparatus. He should have repeated the experiment without the indicator. So repeat step 3 and 4, but without the indicator. Repeat step 3 and 4 without the indicator, because the color is due to the indicator, right? Indicator was just to figure out the volume of neutralization. Yeah. Complete. Repeat the step 3 and 4, or 1 and 4. दोनों कह सकते हैं ना, because he placed this into a conical, so he should place all of this again. Instead of saying 3 and 4, you should say step 1 ये पूरा दोबारा करेगा, and he's gonna skip this out. So you should say he should do step 1 first and then skip step 2. So do 1 and then do 3. So instead of saying 3 4, say repeat step 1 and 3. फिर 4 तो वैसे as it is होगा ना, 1 and 3. I think this is better way of writing it. Repeat step 1 and 3. Okay, see, he's gonna start the experiment again 1, then he's gonna skip this step and then gonna do step 3, and step 4 will follow as is. Step 4 में तो कोई शक नहीं है, वो तो as is आएगा. Yeah. You could have also said repeat the experiment without the indicator. It's okay. It's fine. In step 4, the student gently heats the solution in the evaporating basin until the solution is saturated. Then, what is a saturated solution? Explain what is meant by a saturated solution. What is a saturated solution? Anji, a solution that can hold no more solute dissolved in the solid at a specified temperature, or at a particular temperature. I've explained the concept of saturated solution. So, a solution that can hold no more solute in a solvent at a specified or particular temperature. Or you could have also defined it as a solution that can that has, instead of saying this, you could have also said this, that a solution that has maximum concentration of solute dissolved in the solvent at a specified temperature. Done. Explain why crystals start to appear as the hot solution cools. Why? Because when the hot solution starts to cool, even soluble salts, they are less soluble at lower temperature. That's why you start seeing crystals. So because soluble salts are less soluble at lower temperatures. मजा आ रहा है पेपर का? Acha, this is a very good question that Rabia has asked, and no, Rabia is saying, sir, for part F, shouldn't the color change from yellow to orange? And the answer is no. Do you know why? Because whenever you humanly perform this experiment, you can never, ever, ever be so perfect to get a pH of 7. Never. Right? And sometimes salts normally don't give you a pH of 7. But when you perform titration, how do you know that the end point has reached? Because the indicator changes color. And why does the indicator change color to red and not to orange? Is because you always, when you're using the burette, a single drop of acid is always in excess. a single drop or two drops. If you're very careful, a single drop of acid would be in excess. And because of that H plus, the color would change to red instead of orange. ऑरेंज तो ऐसे हुआ कि आपसे कोई गलती नहीं होती जो कि ह्यूमनली इम्पॉसिबल है. और ऑरेंज pH 7 पे होगा ना, बिल्कुल कोई नहीं. यार फजूल, फातिमा फजूल बकवास प्लीज क्लास में ना करें प्लीज गाइस. मतलब ठीक है, आई एम अ चिल टीचर, बट ये दिस इज अनएक्सेप्टेबल प्लीज. यू देयर आर स्टूडेंट्स हियर हु आर सिटिंग टू लर्न और आप अखलाक से नीचे गिर के बातें कर रही हैं. दैट्स नॉट गुड. दैट्स नॉट गुड. एंड यू आर स्पैमिंग द सेम थिंग्स. आई नो ये फातिमा मातमा नहीं है कोई और. देर आर लॉट ऑफ फातिमा. मैं पूरा नाम नहीं डिस्क्लोज करना चाहते, लेकिन खुदा का खौफ करें. आपके मैसेज में कब से वो मैं सोच रहा हूँ कोई सवाल पूछ रहा है, आप कभी कह रही हैं क्या बात कर रही हैं क्या, और ये प्रॉब्ली एक लड़का ही है. इंसान बन जाए इंसान, कड़का दूंगा. या ओके. नेक्स्ट. अरे बच्चे इधर पढ़ने आ रहे हैं ना. Yeah. Khair. Suggest the effect, if any, on the mass of crystals collected in step 4 if the solution in the evaporating dish is allowed to dry without heating. If it's allowed to dry, what would happen? The H2O would leave, but it would leave at a slower rate, but it would still leave. So he's saying you would allow it to dry, but without heating it. So it's just going to be slow. There's going to be no impact on the mass. There's going to be no impact on the mass of the crystal. The mass of the crystal will stay the same. There's no impact, none. No impact. Why? Because see, even if you let it dry, even if you let it dry without gentle heating, it's okay. At the end of the day, it's getting dried at the end of the day. And when it gets dried, it's going to have the same mass as the mass you're going to get with heating it and drying it. So heat it and dry it, or just let it dry on its own, as you're going to have the same mass of the salt. The mass of the salt wouldn't change, would it? Next question. Gaseous sulfur tetrafluoride reacts with steam in a reversible reaction. The enthalpy change is negative. That means the forward is exothermic and the reverse is endothermic, right? Then he's saying complete the enthalpy energy profile. And if it's an exothermic reaction, what do you do? For this reaction, don't do it for the reverse reaction, do it for this reaction. What do you do? It's an exothermic reaction. Energy taken in during bond breaking is less than the energy given out during bond formation. See, taken in is this much and given out is more. That's why it's exothermic. Taken in is this much, given out is this much. Taken in 2, given out this, right? So that's how you do it. Then what do you do? From the reactants all the way to the top, that's called EA. And from the reactants all the way to the products, please use a ruler here. I don't have any ruler, hence I'm drawing. And always draw these dotted lines. Construction lines isko kehte hain. So you don't get mistaken. From the reactants to the products, that's going to be the enthalpy change. And please, can you guys tell me that is the examiner asking about the formula of the products or just writing products here? See, he's saying write the formula of the products. So SO2 plus 4HF, just like he has written it. See, duplicate him. He has written the symbol as well. I'll also write the symbol. He's also written the modes. I'll also write the modes. So it's SO2 plus 4HF. Muft ke marks hai, Allah ki kasam, free marks. Free marks, and you get 4 marks for just doing this. Literally. That's it. There's no repetition. If there's any question, ask, but no repeating. Repeating के लिए YouTube की वीडियो देखें दोबारा. YouTube पे वीडियो ये अपलोड हो जाएगी. इसके बाद ऑब्वियसली व्हेन द ईयरली सेशन इज इन फुल स्विंग, बच्चे इंशाल्लाह जो है जो रजिस्टर्ड होंगे, जो सीरियस बच्चे होंगे वही क्लास में होंगे. तो वो फिर होगा कि चीज़ें जो है ना बड़ी स्ट्रीमलाइन हो जाएंगी. अभी तो मैं आपको सिर्फ दिखा रहा हूँ कि दिस इज व्हाट वी आर ऑफरिंग. इतना दिस इज द डिटेल वी आर ऑफरिंग, राइट? देन sir, you've been given the enthalpy change right here, and he's saying he's also given us some bond energies, and he's saying calculate the bond energy of S double bonded to O, right? That's what he has done. And it's very easy, how do you calculate enthalpy change? How is this enthalpy change calculated? You say, hey, enthalpy change equals bonds broken minus bonds formed. What bonds will break? The bonds of the reactants are gonna break. Which bonds are gonna form? The bonds of the products are gonna form. Bonds of the reactants are going to break and products are going to form, right? So this bond, 1 SF bond, 2 SF bond, 3 SF bond, 4 SF bond. 4 SF bond breaks. 1 OH, 2 OH, 3 OH, 4 OH. 4 OH bonds will break. Then which bonds would form? Sir, 1 S double bonded to O, 2 S double bonded to O. So 2 S double bonded to O, I don't even know. So I'm going to call this X. 2 S double bonded to O are gonna form, and 1 HF, 2 HF, 3 HF, 4 HF, 4 HF are gonna form. So this is the energy. that is going to be given out when bonds form, and this is the energy that is going to be taken in when bonds break, right? So he's saying, I'm going to make you calculate SO directly, and you have to follow my steps. Okay, I'll follow yourself. He's saying, calculate the energy needed to break the bonds. What is the energy? 4SF plus 4OH. 4SF plus 4OH. This is how easy it is, यार. तो elementary class काम है. SF की energy कितनी? 330. You just have to plug in values. Plus 4 into OH is 460. Please do not write any sign here, because energy does not have any sign. Enthalpy change has a sign. Energies do not have any sign whatsoever. What is the energy taken in to break the bonds? जी बताइएगा. चाट मसाला मसाला बताएं बताएं. शाबाश. आंसर बताइए. शाबाश शाबाश, जल्दी करें यार. किसके सवाल है? हाँ, Musa is saying, sir, can we add double face arrow? No. Enthalpy changes from the reactants to the top. Sorry, activation energy is from the reactants to the top, which is the minimum energy that reactant particles must have in order to undergo successful collisions and form products. And enthalpy change is the transfer of thermal energy during a chemical reaction. That's how you need to know this, right? So what's the energy? Anji bataएं जी. 3160. This is the energy taken in to break the bonds. Then what is the energy released when bonds form? Well, you're given enthalpy change, which is what? Bonds broken minus bond formed. What is the enthalpy change? He's given it to you. It's minus 54. So enthalpy change is minus 54. Bonds broken is also here. It's 3160 minus bonds formed. Shift 3160 on the left hand side. It's minus 54 minus 3160 equals minus bond formed. Then minus 54 and minus 3160. You can shift all of this to the left and all of this to the right. It doesn't really matter. Can you guys tell me minus bond formed equals what? Minus what? हाँ जी बताएं, जल्दी बताएं. Minus 3214. Minus minus cuts out. See, it's energy. Energy has no value, and that's how I've proven it, that energy has no value. So what's the energy given out when bonds form? It's 3214 kilojoule. 3214 kilojoule. Now he's saying calculate the bond energy of SO. Now how do you calculate bond energy of SO? SO is on the product end. It's right here on the product end. And how do you calculate it? You say, hey, 2 times X plus all of this would be equal to what? 2 times X plus all of this would be equal to the energy given out when bonds form, which is 3214. So 2 times X plus 4 times HF is going to be equal to 3214, because this is the energy given out during bond formation. Yeah. 2x plus 4 times HF is what? HF is 570. It's literally math. देख रहे हैं कितने calculations पे focus है. 2x plus, what does this give you? 2x, 570 times 4. What is 570 times 4? Somebody tell me please. 570 times 4. If you're not going to tell me, I'm going to do it directly then. 2x, shift all of this to the left. So 3214 minus 4 into 570. Hanji, 2x equals, what does this give me? 934. X equals 934 divided by 2, which is equal to what? 467. See, it's energy. Energy has no sign. 467. Sir, I was going through the marking scheme for the methyl orange color and it mentions the changes as orange. No, it's incorrect. गलत है, कोई change in orange नहीं है. दफा करें. मैं सही कह रहा हूँ. अब्दुल, I'm saying the correct word. अब आप एक और पेपर देखेंगे, उसमें रेड लिखा होगा, फिर आप मेरे पीछे आएंगे, सर इधर रेड है, इधर, और मैं तो मर रहा हूँ भी. रेड लिखें, बात खत्म. यू आर नॉट सपोज टू नो ऑरेंज. फॉरगेट अबाउट इट प्लीज. मैं मार्किंग स्कीम हूँ. आई एम द मार्किंग स्कीम राइट हियर इन फ्रंट ऑफ यू. Unless and until I make a calculation error, which is going to be because of you guys, obviously. But unless and until that, whatever I am telling you, even if the marking scheme does not have that much detail, you have to write it. I am preparing you for distinctions and for A stars, yeah. Okay? So relax. Now, state the effect, if any. He's giving again the same equation. This is minus. Minus means what? Forward is exo and reverse is endo. What would be the effect on the position of the equilibrium when the following changes are made? Give a reason to your answers. When the temperature is increased, well, reason is when you increase the temperature, it favors What increase in temperature favors? Endothermic. And endothermic is what? It's the reverse reaction, which is the reverse reaction. So where should the position of the equilibrium shift? Therefore, the position of equilibrium shifts to the left hand side. Shifts to the left hand side. Please पूरी बातें लिखें. Then the pressure is increased. Increase in pressure favors fewer gaseous moles or fewer moles of gas. ये तो आपके फिंगर टिप्स पे होने चाहिए ना. विच इज, प्लीज हमेशा बताएं करें, विच इज right hand side or left hand side. See here you have 2 moles plus 1, 3 moles of gas on the left hand side, and 1 mole plus 4, 5 moles of gas on the right hand side. So it would favor fewer gaseous moles which are on the left hand side, that is on left hand side, which is 3. Thus equilibrium shifts to the लेफ्ट हैंड साइड. इतनी सिंपल बातें यार, क्या बताऊं. कैटलिस्ट हैज नो इफेक्ट, नो इफेक्ट, बिकॉज कैटलिस्ट डज नॉट affect the position of the equilibrium, और नो इफेक्ट की जगह लेकिन नो चेंज इन द पोजिशन ऑफ इक्विलिब्रियम है. नो चेंज. और फिर रीजन बताएं नो चेंज क्यों है? बिकॉज कैटलिस्ट ओनली इंक्रीजेज द रेट ऑफ रिएक्शन, इट हैज नो इफेक्ट ऑन द पोजिशन ऑफ इक्विलिब्रियम. मतलब ये तो बस ना 50 हर पेपर में ये टेस्ट हो रहा है, हर पेपर में ये टेस्ट हो रहा है. एवरी पेपर इज टेस्टिंग दिस, एवरी पेपर इज टेस्टिंग दिस. Sir, how can we register? Is this the only? Yes, this is the last demo class from my side. You can register by contacting Miss Naiva +921381772015. यार आप मेरा पास्ट पेपर सेशन ही सिर्फ कर लेना तो आपका ग्रेड बच जाएगा इंशाल्लाह. ये मेरा वादा है, लेकिन ईमानदारी से करें. जी यासीन, यू हैव रेज्ड योर हैंड. सर रिप्लाई कर दें. जी 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 यासीन, जल्दी जल्दी बोलें. वाह सलाम. जी जी जल्दी बोलें.
सर ये पिछले वाले क्वेश्चन में आपने 54 क्यों ऐड नहीं किया?
किया है ना,
क्योंकि एनर्जी के साथ ये 54 भी ऐड हो रहे हैं ना.
ये है ना -3160 -54 जो है, दोनों माइनस माइनस ऐड हो गए ना. 3214 आए, माइनस माइनस कट गए.
ये तो टोटल एनर्जी रिलीज हुए हैं ना, ये एसओ वाले में ये प्रोडक्ट
तो
है.
वाले
और
में क्या नहीं किया मैंने.
इस प्रोडक्ट के साथ आप 54 एनर्जी भी रिलीज
नो
हुए हैं ना.
नो, आर यू टॉकिंग अबाउट दिस पार्ट राइट हियर?
यस सर.
This in this part you need to calculate SO bond energy. SO bond energy
हाँ,
कैसे कैलकुलेट कर? अच्छा सुनिए सुनिए ना, सुन. जी 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 बताएं बताएं.
ये 3214 एनर्जी जो रिलीज हुई है, ये सिर्फ एसओ की तो नहीं रिलीज हुई, ये इसके साथ एफएच की भी हुई है, और ये 54 जो हमारे पास एक्स्ट्रा एनर्जी रिलीज हुई है वो भी है.
हाँ तो ये 54 ये लिखा हुआ है ना, ये 54 इसमें ऐड हो कि ही 3214 बनना है ना. देखिए कैलकुलेट द एनर्जी रिलीज व्हेन बॉन्ड्स व्हेन द प्रोडक्ट्स फॉर्म, इट्स दिस मच. ये 54 इसमें ऐड हो गए ना, 3214 बना ही इन दोनों को ऐड करके हुआ है.
ओके माय बैड.
इट्स ओके, इट्स ओके. यस योर बैड बट इट्स ओके. है जी, रिप्लाई कर दें, बोलें.
CV कौन सा फॉर्मूला है?
N equals CV, moles equals concentration into volume. जो आप ऐसे पढ़ते हैं, concentration equals mole divided by volume. ये वो फॉर्मूला है.
ओके. और सर आप अपने सेशन में माइक अलाउ करेंगे?
जी जी, जब रजिस्टर्ड सेशन होगा उसमें माइक भी अलाउ है, आप चैट भी अलाउ होगा, माइक भी अलाउ होगा, सब. ये तो इधर तो हर किस्म के उठ के आ जाते हैं ना, तो जो रजिस्टर्ड होंगे वो जाहिर सी बात है फिर तो एक अलग इंटरैक्टिव क्लास होगा ना. अच्छा, explain in terms of collision theory why decreasing temperature decreases the rate of reaction. I have done this question a billion times now, because when you decrease the temperature there is decrease in kinetic energy of particles, and so the first thing that happens is the frequency of collisions decreases. पहली चीज ये है, लेकिन बच्चे बस इधर तक लिख के ना 2 मार्क्स उनको मिलते हैं. क्यों? बिकॉज दे नेवर रियली टॉक अबाउट द आइडिया कि व्हेन किनेटिक एनर्जी डिक्रीजेस, नाउ fewer particles or less proportion of particles have energy greater than or equal to the activation energy. क्योंकि अगर पार्टिकल्स की किनेटिक एनर्जी आपने कम कर दी तो एक तो फ्रीक्वेंसी ऑफ कोलिजन्स कम होगा, और दूसरा पार्टिकल्स के पास अब कम पार्टिकल्स होंगे जिनके पास एनर्जी इक्वल टू और ग्रेटर देन द ई होगा. बिकॉज ओनली इफ यू हैव एनर्जी इक्वल टू और ग्रेटर देन द ई ए वुड यू बी एबल टू अंडरगो सक्सेसफुल कोलिजन्स एंड फॉर्म प्रोडक्ट्स. हेंस व्हाट वुड हैपन टू द रेट ऑफ रिएक्शन? रेट ऑफ रिएक्शन वुड, while reducing temperature decreases the rate of, तो उसने खुद कहा कि therefore रेट ऑफ रिएक्शन डिक्रीज। लेकिन वो उसने सवाल में कहा 1 मार्क आपको इसका मिलेगा, 1 मार्क इसका मिलेगा और 1 मार्क इसका मिलेगा। और ये सवाल मैं 50 दफ़ा पूछ चुका हूँ। इवन व्हेन दिस क्वेश्चन यूज्ड टू बी टेस्टेड फॉर 2 मार्क्स आई यूज्ड टू गिव ऑल दीज 3 पॉइंट्स। तो बस यही है यार, पिछले सालों के पेपर दिए 50 सारे क्वेश्चन रिपीट हैं। ऑल द क्वेश्चन आर रिपीट, ऑल द क्वेश्चन, नो न्यू क्वेश्चन। डोंट अनम्यूट फलाना टिमकाना। अच्छा जी आगे बढ़े आगे बढ़े, टाइम नहीं है टाइम नहीं है, जी जी खत्म करें खत्म। लास्ट क्वेश्चन, the question is about homologous series of alcohol. A homologous series is a family of organic compounds whose family members have the same general formula. What's the general formula of alcohol? CnH2n plus 1 OH. Right? Jitne carbons, N represents the number of carbons. Jitne carbons and hydrogens are twice the number of that plus 1 OH. Give one other characteristic of a homologous series. So he's saying they have the same general formula. They have similar chemical reactions. Consecutive members differ by CH2, right? Sorry for my English, you can fix the English. Consecutive members differ by CH2. I'm saying the correct English, I'm just writing shortcuts because lack of time, right? Then you could also say they have the same general formula. एक जगह में लिखा है. Then you could say they have gradual trend in physical properties, and the last and the most crucial one, you also talk about what? You can also talk about having the same functional group, right? Yes, all of this, any of this. Can you show the number for registration? +923181772015. I've learned Miss Naiba's number at this point. जी my bad bro, बोलें जी 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 जल्दी बोलें, जल्दी जल्दी जी। अहमद खान बोलें, जी जी अहमद खान बोलें जल्दी जल्दी, टाइम नहीं।
Sir, I'm an Edexcel student. I wanted to ask, आप Edexcel को भी पढ़ाएंगे?
एडेक्सेल और ओ लेवल IGCSE का कोर्स डिफरेंट है अहमद खान, बट इट्स ऑल्सो सिमिलर टू सम एक्सटेंट। तो अगर आपने कॉन्सेप्ट सीखने हैं, बस ये इधर से कॉन्सेप्ट लें और अपने एडेक्सेल में अप्लाई करें। ये ओ
Okay, sir.
लेवल
Thank you.
IGCSE या स्पेसिफिकली पास्ट पेपर्स ओ लेवल IGCSE के होते हैं, बट नॉर्मली एडेक्सेल स्टूडेंट्स डू टेक ओ लेवल IGCSE क्वेश्चन पेपर्स बिकॉज इट हेल्प्स देम अलॉट। एडेक्सेल बहुत आसान है, इनसे तो बहुत आसान है। जी अदनान बोले जल्दी बोले, अदनान टाइम नहीं है। जी 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 अदनान थंडरबोल्ट बोले। अच्छा मैं आगे बढ़ रहा हूँ यार, 10 मिनट रह गए और कितने सवाल हैं? ओ तेरी खैर, अच्छा बस आखिरी 4-5 सवाल रह गए। जी 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 शाबाश शाबाश। एथेनॉल कैन बी मैन्युफैक्चर्ड फ्रॉम बाय 2 मेथड्स। वन इज यूजिंग ग्लूकोज एज द स्टार्टिंग मटेरियल। ग्लूकोज जब आप इस्तेमाल करते हैं क्या होता है? यू टेक C6H12O6, add water to it, then what happens? You add yeast, provide a temperature of 25 to 35 degrees Celsius. There must be absence of oxygen for yeast to respire anaerobically. You're going to get ethanol, which is going to be aqueous. It's going to be dilute because obviously you added water here. So you have to, and you're going to get carbon dioxide. 2 moles of ethanol, 2 moles of carbon dioxide. And this ethanol, because it's dilute, you have to perform fractional distillation to make sure that it becomes concentrated, right? Remove the water from it. Okay, and then the other method 2 is saying you can use ethene. Yes, you can also use ethene to make ethanol because ethene is an alkene. And alkene को किससे हम react करते हैं? With steam. Alkene is reacted with steam. What are the conditions? At 300 degrees Celsius, 60 atmosphere pressure, and you use an acid as the catalyst. Normally, which acid? Phosphoric acid, H3PO4, acidified aqueous phosphoric acid. Done, and you end up with alcohol. Done. So typical temperature used for both ethene के साथ 300 degrees Celsius, and degree Celsius is already written right here, so I don't have to write degree Celsius again. And glucose के साथ what? 25 to 35. Typical. Two essential conditions glucose के लिए क्या है? Yeast है, और दूसरा क्या है? Absence of oxygen. Done. Yeast, absence of oxygen. And इधर क्या है? 60 atmosphere pressure, और दूसरा acid as the catalyst. So acid as catalyst, or you could even write phosphoric acid. 6 मार्क्स खुदा की कसम पता नहीं किस चीज की, मुझे तो समझ नहीं। 6 मार्क्स 6 सेकंड में हो गए। नेक्स्ट, राइट द सिंपल इक्वेशन फॉर मेथड 1। वी ऑलरेडी रिटन इट। C6H12O6 aqueous होता है, gives me what सर? C2H5OH, ये aqueous है, that's ethanol, plus CO2, 2 moles of ethanol form and 2 moles of carbon dioxide form. Write the simple equation for reaction 2. Sir, ethene is C2H4 because alkene is CnH2 and N represents carbon. So जितने carbons होंगे, hydrogens will be twice the number of that. Eth means 2 carbons. Plug in 2 here, 2 times 2, that's 4. So ethene plus H2O gas. What is that going to give you? Please don't write the state symbols if you are not required, because if you write incorrect state symbols, you're going to get a mark deducted. Even here, it's my bad to write state symbols nahi likhne chahiye, because if you write incorrect state symbols, you're going to get a mark deducted. So the 2 marks are for writing the equation and balancing it, not for the symbols. Symbol equation का मतलब ये नहीं है कि state symbol लिखें. The state symbol फिर specifically बोला होगा या ये mark 3 marks का हुआ होगा, right? So what do you get? You get ethanol. Ethanol का formula already here है C2H5OH. Nothing else forms because it's an addition reaction. Only one product forms. Okay, next, butane 1,4-diol. It's like this. It's a diol, right? Remember in O-level IGCSE, you normally, what do? You club or you sandwich all of these CH2 into a box. So this CH2 is effectively like a box. OH on the left, OH on the right. He's saying reduce the molecular formula of butane 1,4-diol. Now, if he wants the molecular formula, obviously molecular formula is the sum of, it's the number and type of atoms in a molecule. What is the number? What is the type first? You have carbon, you have hydrogen, and you have oxygen. Remember, whenever you write molecular formula for organic compounds, carbon comes first, then hydrogen, then oxygen, then nitrogen, and so on and so forth, right? But it's always CHO and then everything else. So how many carbons do you have? 1, 2, 3, 4. Simply just adding it. Number. Ab number likh raha hu. First I wrote the type, now the number 4. Hydrogens are how many? 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 and 10. 10 hydrogens. How many oxygen do you have? 1, 2, 2 oxygen. So C4H10O2. Anji, आसान है कि नहीं? अच्छा, now he's saying diol reacts with ethanoic acid, right? Then he's saying determine the number of moles of ethanoic acid that would react with 1 mole of diol. See, this diol has OHs, 1 OH on the left, 1 OH on the right. And what would happen is the acid is going to give a hydrogen here, 1 hydrogen ion is going to come here and H2O is going to form, and the other hydrogen ion is going to come on the other OH and H2O is going to form. So effectively, how many hydrogens do you need? You need 2 moles of hydrogens, right? Because 1 mole would require one to react with one of the OH and the other mole would require with the other OH, right? So how many moles would react of ethanoic acid with 1 mole of this fellow? Obviously 2. Why 2? Very simple. The ethanoic acid, since it's an acid, it's a proton donor. 1 mole would give hydrogen ion here and the other mole would give a hydrogen ion here. So you need 2 H pluses effectively. Yes, Afnan, be quick. जी पूछें. जी बोले जी.
सर ये जो वो था एडिशन रिएक्शन था इथीन का, तो वो रिवर्सिबल रिएक्शन दिया हुआ है बुक में, लेकिन आपने तो उसको वो लिखा है, यानी एक एरो लिखा है आपने।
नहीं, एक एरो डालें, जब कुछ नहीं दिया हो तो बस एक एरो डालें, एक एरो। रिवर्सिबल छोड़ दें, आगे बढ़ें, कुछ नहीं होता रिवर्सिबल से। एक आगे बढ़ें आगे।
सर
जी इब्राहिम,
सर ये
बुक
जो
छोड़ दें।
अभी हमने पार्ट 2 करा ना सी का,
हम्म।
सर ये समझ नहीं आया इसमें
नहीं,
बहुत
समझ आ जाएगा। आप एसिड बेसिस एंड सॉल्ट्स रिवाइज करें, आपको पता होना चाहिए कि फॉर 1 OH 1 H प्लस इज रिक्वायर्ड। तो अगर 2 OH हो 2 H प्लस, आप न्यूट्रलाइजेशन रिएक्शन जब करते हैं H प्लस प्लस OH माइनस गिव्स यू H2O। तो अगर अब 2 OHs हों तो कितने H प्लस चाहिए बताएं जी? फॉर 2 OHs कितने? 2 H प्लस। तो कितने मोल्स ऑफ एसिड आएंगे? 2 मोल्स ना। एसिड इज इफेक्टिवली H प्लस और फिर 2 मोल्स ऑफ वाटर भी बनेंगे। डन।
हम लोग को बेसिकली एच पॉजिटिव आयंस बताना था ना।
हाँ, एसिड इज इफेक्टिवली एन H पॉजिटिव आयन ना। इट्स अ प्रोटॉन डोनर। अच्छा, ब्यूटेन, ओके नो प्रॉब्लम। ब्यूटेन डायोइक एसिड, देखिए ये वही चीज़ है। आपने हम इसको सैंडविच करते हैं, आपको पता है नॉर्मली हम इसको ऐसे सैंडविच करके शो करते हैं, COOH, C डबल बॉन्डेड टू OOH। इसको खोल के दिखा रहे हैं जस्ट टू कंफ्यूज यू ऑल। जस्ट अ मोमेंट गाइस, जस्ट अ मोमेंट, लेट मी कंप्लीट द पेपर। डिड्यूस द एम्पिरिकल फॉर्मूला ऑफ ब्यूटेन डायोइक एसिड। व्हाट्स द एम्पिरिकल फॉर्मूला? द सिंपलेस्ट होल नंबर रेशियो, राइट? सो व्हाट डू? You add, first of all, figure out the molecular formula for it. 1 carbon, 2 carbon, 3 carbon, 4 carbon, C4. How many hydrogens? 1 hydrogen, 3, 4, 5, 6 hydrogens. How many O's? 2, 3, 4 O's, right? So it's C4H6O4. Now you have to simplify it because it's asking about the empirical formula, 4:6:4. How do you simplify it? Divide by 2. You get 2:3:2. So it's CH and O, right? So it's 2 carbons, 3 hydrogens, and 2 oxygens. C2H, okay, H3O2. Done? Done, tara. Next, name the gas forms when butane dioic acid. It's an acid. When an acid reacts with a metal, what happens? Remember, don't be scared of these big ass butane, dioic acid, blah blah blah, dioic acid, blue alloy. It's an acid. Acid plus metal gives you what? Whenever you have an acid and you react it with a metal, the metal displaces the hydrogen of the acid, gives you salt and hydrogen. So what's the gas? The gas is hydrogen. Name it. So write hydrogen. Don't put H2. Name means name. Next. He's given you the last. Is this the last question? I hope it is. Acha, last question. Acha, before we do this, I'm going to do part two. Part two says, name the type of polymerization when a diol, see, don't even read this 1,4, just read it as diol. So when a diol reacts with a dicarboxylic acid or a diacid, diol reacts with a dicarboxylic acid. What's the polymerization called? It's called condensation polymerization. Right? It's called condensation polymerization. When alkenes they undergo polymerization, that's called addition polymerization. So the type is condensation. And which polymer would it form? A dicarboxylic acid and a diol forms what? It forms a polyester. And this is what we have to show. So he's saying show 2 repeat units of this polymer. 2 repeat units दिखाने sir. For the first time 2 repeat units are tested. What do we do? Sir, it doesn't matter. You can put the carboxylic acid first or the alcohol first, but what you do is, this is the first box. COOH, इनको आमने सामने लिखिएगा. Write these two in front of each other, like so. See, OH bonded to this, bonded to OH. And then duplicate it. Because it's saying 2 repeat unit, right? This fella would give you 1 repeat unit. I need 2. So I'm going to duplicate this again. This OH, a box, C double bonded to OH. And then it is OH box and OH. I've just duplicated things, right? This is what is written right here. I wrote it as so, and diol, I wrote it in front of this. Then I wrote the dicarboxylic acid and the diol, because this would give you 1 repeat unit, and that's 2. And he's saying put 2. What would happen? The carboxylic acid loses the OH and the alcohol loses the H. The carboxylic acid loses the OH and the alcohol loses the H. The carboxylic acid loses the OH and the alcohol loses the H. The carboxylic acid would lose the OH and the alcohol would lose the H. So what would happen? ये सारा मिट जाएगा इधर से, ये निकलेगा, and you just join it, right? So you just join this, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put C double bonded to O. ये जो terminal OH है, this OH and this H, this will go into connectivity bonds. Always remember this. The terminal OH and H goes into connectivity bonds. जो कैसे है, बाकी क्या है, इसी को दोबारा बनाए बस, that's all. C double bonded to O. See, C double bonded to O. Now all of this is gone. So this C double bonded to O would bond with this O. And then just repeat. See, this is the ester linkage, by the way. And then it is O. This O, see now this O, this H2O is left. This O bonds with C double bonded to O, which bonds with the box. Then C double bonded to O. Then this C double bonded to O bonds with the O, which bonds with the box which is with the O, right? So bonds with the O, then bonds with the box, and then bond this box with the O, and this H is for the connectivity bonds. Remember, my question to you guys is put a circle around the ester linkage. This is 1 ester linkage, 2 ester linkage, and the 3rd ester linkage, 3 ester linkages. If this was the question, right? The question finishes here. The question finishes, even you don't even have to put circles, but this is my questions. Ester linkages कौन से? COO, 3 ester linkages. How many waters have been removed? 3 moles of water has been removed. 1 for this ester linkage, the other for this ester linkage, the 3rd one for this ester linkage. Sir, but water has been removed here as well. No, this is just for connectivity bonds. This OH, the leftmost OH and the rightmost H, this is not effectively water being removed. It's just for connectivity bonds. That's all. So 3 moles of water have been removed effectively. The number of linkages that you have is the number of moles of water which have been removed. Is the paper over or no? Yaar, bas na. So the paper is officially over. We scored full marks like we always do. एनी क्वेश्चंस जी पूछिएगा. ए लेवल्स की पेपर अब शुरू होने वाले, कोई सवाल है जी पूछे, अब पूछिएगा जी. एनी क्वेश्चंस? सीआई का पेपर डार्क मोड में मिलता है? नहीं. अफनान पूछे, जल्दी पूछें जी. सर डोंट से फेलेस किल क्रिंज किल योरसेल्फ. नेक्स्ट जी. सर स्लो डाउन. सॉरी आई कैंट स्लो डाउन. यूट्यूब पे वीडियो देखिए. बस ये आखिरी डेमो थी.
सर आप 3x पे बोलते हैं
यार. असल में 3x पे इसलिए बोलना होता है क्योंकि मैंने बहुत सारा डेटा देना है. बच्चों का काम ये कि आप उसको देखें कि आपको क्या ये चीज आती है कि नहीं. अगर आपको नहीं है, अब ये आपको नहीं पता कि ये 3 मोल्स ऑफ वाटर बन रहे हैं नहीं बन रहे, इसका मतलब है आप अपना चैप्टर जाके रिवाइज करें. दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. पास पेपर का मकसद ये नहीं कि मैं बस सिर्फ आंसर लिखता जाऊं. इसका मतलब है कि मैं आपको बताऊं कि जी इसका ये भी मकसद हो सकता है, ये भी पूछ सकता है, वो भी पूछ सकता है. तो ये मैं बहुत स्लो करके पेपर खत्म कर लूंगा. बट देन आई विल जस्ट बी आंसरिंग क्वेश्चंस, राइट? आई एम नॉट जस्ट आंसरिंग क्वेश्चंस. या इस चीज को रियलाइज करें. जी रयान पूछेगा. शाबाश, अब ए लेवल शुरू होने लगे. जी जी जल्दी पूछें.
सर मैंने पूछना था एएस का सेशन कब स्टार्ट होगा?
यार माफ कर दें, अभी शुरू होने लगे. मैं दोबारा स्टार्ट कर रहा हूँ ना. ये ओ लेवल से पूछ लें. जी जी मुइज आप बताएं.
मतलब है जो टोटल होते हैं कोर्स होते हैं
रेहान मुझे डीएम करें, बाद में बता देंगे। हाँ जी, दूसरा बताएं जी। अब हो गया मुइज, डीएम करें, कोर्स दोबारा शुरू होगा जून में इंशाल्लाह। डीएम करें ऐसी बातें। जी जी, बस ख़त्म। मुइज आप बोलें, अली आप बोलें, जल्दी बोलें यार, टाइम हो गया। जी बस, कोई सवाल नहीं है, ख़त्म। जी मुइज
सर
पूछें। जी अली, जी
कैल्शियम
जी जी।
हाइड्रोक्साइड वीक एल्कलाई कैसे होती है?
यार वीक एल्कलाइन नहीं, इट्स स्पारिंगली सॉल्युबल, बिकॉज इसकी सॉल्युबिलिटी है ना, कैल्शियम हाइड्रोक्साइड चूंकि स्पारिंगली सॉल्युबल, तो हाइड्रोक्साइड आयंस कम देता है, इसीलिए इसके पास, इसको जो इंडिकेटर है वो वॉयलेट मॉयलेट नहीं होता, वो ब्लूइश की तरफ होता है। वॉयलेट इस तब होगा जब सोडियम हाइड्रोक्साइड वगैरह हो। बस खत्म, क्वेश्चन मुक गए। चलिए डीएम करें, बाकी क्वेश्चन व्हाट्सएप पे डीएम करें। एएस लेवल शुरू होने लगा है। ओके सी यू गाइस, बाय, अस्सलाम वालेकुम।